Thank you very much for giving me and my kids, my two daughters, this opportunity to be among the wonderful group of different categories today. It's an honor for me to be able to share my experiences from a country of conflict, post-conflict, but already in another conflict, Afghanistan. Well, actually, we keep saying that the world is very small. It has turned to a globalized village, and the story how I came to know about this conference actually is a proof of how small this world is. It's interesting for you to know how I came to know about this conference. Actually, I met Ms. Rana a couple of weeks ago, and you won't believe it, in a shop. She was talking on the phone to somebody about this conference, and without respecting her phone conversation, I interrupted, and I said, "Can my daughters come?" And she was still talking on the phone. Once she finished, she explained more about this, and I gave her my card. I think almost both of us forgot about this, but I thought she also forgot. But she was very nice to connect me to her daughter, Miss Urvashi. Thanks to her warm hospitality, she invited my daughters, and she said, "Can you also come?" And considering the very young and talented and very motivated group of audience, I decided to come, although it's very busy time politically in Afghanistan. And in fact, yesterday when I was coming to the airport, at 2 o'clock, I actually had a meeting with Secretary Kerry about the complexity of Afghanistan politics. You know, nowadays we are still struggling to have a president, and we were supposed to have, with two presidential candidates, a press conference at 4, but I decided and preferred to be with you, so I came straight away from the airport to be with you. And it's very nice to be here, because I know, like my daughters, many of participants perhaps have been to such event for the first time. My daughters have traveled alone, and I let them travel from Afghanistan, and it's not very usual, alone to India. I thought they will have to be through all those difficult circumstances, perhaps, to learn. I wanted to walk you through my childhood as a girl and share my life that has been in a difficult, discriminative environment, and compare it with my daughter's life, Shuhra and Shahrzad, who are here today, and see how the differences are between my generation and my daughter's generation. Actually, I was born in a very traditional but political family, and I was one of the most disliked child of my parents, because I was a girl. And my mother was not happy because I was a girl, yet another girl, and she was suffering as much as she suffered as a woman. She wanted to have a son, baby, to attract the attention and love of my father. And my father, of course, wanted to have a son because he wanted the identity of the family to be represented by a son. And the perspective was that the family will only be better represented by a son. So I was the most disliked child, and they put me, actually, you know, nobody would care. And when I was born in a country where access to medical facilities for women who deliver babies is not very high, and the country is suffering actually from the highest number of maternal mortality now. By then it was even worse. So my mother was under difficult health situation. They put me in under the sun, and later on, a few hours later, they realized that I have a sunburn in my face. That disliked child became later on one of the most favorable daughter or child of my mother. So my father was also a politician, and he was one of those traditional but very strong politicians. I have learned a lot from my mother and my father's life. My mother was not educated, but she was very strong, and strong enough to control my father's life. And my mother was not the only wife in that family. My father actually married 7 times, and he had 7 wives. So this was the first lessons I learned, how difficult it is to be a child in a multi-marriage family. And this was the first thing that I started struggling when I grew up later on and became a politician, which still, it's a long way to go, but at least we have started talking about it in my daily life and with the other groups of my fellow parliamentarians. I was the first, actually I'm the first of many. I was the first in our family, the first girl to go to school. And it was not easy for me, because the only person that supported me in going to school was my mother. And that was after when my father was killed. I remember days that my brothers were not happy, and I had to look at the forehead of my brothers. If they look happy, I would go to school. If they didn't look happy, I would have to stay home because they were angry, and they might stop me from going to school forever. But I was always to their standard. I was always the first position in the school. So they didn't have enough reasons to stop me from going to school. There were days that my brothers will tear my bag, and they see my purse, and they say, you're not allowed to go anymore to school, because a girl is always somebody else's property. When she is born, she is the property of her husband. She will marry to somebody else. Nobody will own her in her family. Once she gets married, she is the property of her father. The husband and the in-laws will not feel ownership. So she till the time that she dies, she is the property of somebody else. And of course, I was, if I get education, then anyways, I will get married and then go to that was the perspective, the traditional perspective in Afghanistan. But my daughters, they go to the best school in Kabul. That's the difference of my generation and their generation. So I went to school with that harsh circumstances. And the family tradition was not the only circumstances that pushed me or put me in very difficult environment. Later on, the politics, and in particularly during the Taliban, perhaps you heard this word of Taliban, when many schools and universities were closed for girls. Girls were banned to go to school or even health clinics or even access to a doctor when she was sick. I was pregnant for my first child, and for me to go to see a doctor, I was always supposed to be accompanied by a male. And can you imagine if I had no husband or no brother or no male companion, how difficult life was? So it was not only the traditional perspective and aspect of life, but also the politics, which I think put a lot of strength and determination inside not only me, but many women and girls like me to grow up stronger and to have that passion to change whatever they have experienced. I have survived the Taliban regime, and it was not easy. It's a very long story, but I will just give you a short example of how difficult it was for me and for many hundreds and thousands of women in Afghanistan to live under Taliban regime. One day they put my husband in jail, and I went as a newly married woman to visit my husband. I just forgot to clean my nail polish. I was a newly married woman, so I wanted to have some fashion and designs. The Taliban picked up a stone and wanted to stone me for just putting a nail polish. And for the first time, for a few minutes, I actually forgot who I was as a human being. But later on, that passion gave me the strength after 2001 to come to politics. Marginalized child, I ran for politics. I wanted to be a medical doctor, but Taliban stopped that. And I became the first woman politician from my family. And when I came to parliament, I wanted to run for the Speaker of the Parliament, Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, because there are 69 women represented in Afghan Parliament out of 249, which makes it 27%. And I thought if 69 women vote for me, that's a victory. I ran, and other politicians, they were distributing money to get elected to the seat. They were inviting people in the fancy hotels. I invited some guests in a hotel which was full of gas smoke. And I thought they were not going to vote for me after this invitation. Even if they wanted to vote for me, they are not going to vote for me. But luckily, I won. I won to be the first female deputy speaker of the country. And I remember chairing a plenary which people with 40 years of politics experience were there. It was not enough for me. I had to fight those things that I have experienced in my childhood as a discrimination measures. I had to fight early marriages. I had to fight multi-marriage. I had to fight all the experiences that as a woman put me in difficult situation. And so therefore we started mobilizing women in caucuses. And right now, I'm the chair of a women parliamentary caucus. We have tried to have the first law on elimination of violence against women, which early marriage, multi-marriage is banned. That law still has to go through the parliament, but at least we have the law. And in fact, that's a different, from my childhood to my daughters. I wanted my daughters to grow, not only my own daughters, but my country daughters, children, girls, to grow different life like mine. Therefore, I wanted my daughters to come to this conference, and I wanted them to enjoy the world opportunities. I think my life is a success story of many women and girls in Afghanistan life. There are many unheard voices in Afghanistan that need the sisterhood and unity of the world, leaders, civil society activists, social activists, people like yourself. Women of Afghanistan are not just poor. We have been saying that poor women of Afghanistan. This word of poor is being attached with women of Afghanistan. I would like to say here that women are poor, they're uneducated, but they are strong and resistant. And women of Afghanistan have proven that, not only there, but all over the world. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, take another bow.
TGELF, leading the change.